Hi, everybody. This is Tim Allen for the Flint Creek Courier. We are coming to you from the Granite County Museum with our taped broadcast of today's state representative debate. Monica Tranel, Tom Lamb, and Ryan Zinke were all invited to this. This is being put on by the Tranel campaign. And this broadcast being brought to you by the Granite County Democrats. So we're reminding you to vote and get out and do your civic duty this November, or when you get your absentee ballot, which they'll be going out, I believe, the 11th of October. So be looking for those. We expect Monica Tranel to be here. Tom Lamb is already here, but it is our understanding that Ryan Zinke will not be here. He has not stated he will not be here, but he does have a seat at the table if he decides to show. So we're waiting for the room to fill here. We've got various guests have come in, and then also I believe there's a government class or two government classes came over from Granite High School, escorted by J.B. Chandler and some folks, and so a bunch of students are here as well, some soon-to-be voters. So.
This district here.
The only one here. Yeah.
And we started our broadcast just a little bit early, but you may notice the camera will fade here when the candidates start to come into the room, and we will make sure we get them on when we're ready to go. So we thank you for tuning in and being part of our political process here in Montana and the United States. And again, the Flint Creek Courier, as well as our sponsor, the Granite County Democrats, encouraging you to get out and vote. It is a right and a privilege, and something that is very, very rare to be done fairly in the United States.
That's small. I mean, I thought this guy was small.
Yeah. About the size of ants.
Yeah.
John, you want to be on the left or the right today? You got a preference? This side? Yeah, I figured.
Hey, John, how are you? Good to see you. Hi. Are we gonna just hop to it?
Well, we'll take a minute here and get settled in.
Okay. Get to go say hello to everybody in the
It's one of them
crowd.
towns that's not easy just to hop off the interstate.
I know. Well, we were going a little fast, and a car, I don't know, a patrol car was going the other direction, and he flashed his lights at us. We could be late.
Yeah.
Hi.
We got part of the school here today.
Oh, that's
I think a couple of
awesome.
classes.
Great. Oh, fantastic. Thanks for the friendly warning. It's more than I got from the other guy.
The empty chair, huh?
Okay.
An empty chair.
Yes.
Well, if you folks are ready, we'll get underway here. I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Daniel Reddish. I am the current mayor of Phillipsburg, and I was asked to sit in and moderate on this debate today. And so I feel honored to do that. And I'd like to say right off the cuff, I'm very impressed with the turnout here. And thank everyone for their desire to engage in the democratic process. And so this is wonderful to see. Just a few housekeeping notes here. Locations of the restrooms are through the lobby there to the left. Of course, we want to have an engaged process here, but we would ask that everyone maintain their self-control and stay within the boundaries of decorum, and we can have a good discussion here today. We just want to be able to remind everyone of that. And if there is any press here today, could you identify yourselves? We've got one, we've got two. Okay, thank you for that. If you are here representing a candidate and the candidate may not be here, we ask that you not record this. However, the press that is here obviously can record it. These are some just regular guidelines here. Each candidate will answer predetermined questions for the first 30 to 40 minutes. Questions will be fielded from the audience for approximately 20 to 25 minutes. Each candidate will be provided an equally timed wrap-up for a final 2 minutes. What we're going to do here in the format is each candidate will be given 3 minutes for an opening statement. There's no opportunity for a rebuttal to the opening statement. The moderator, myself, or members of the audience will eventually ask questions. We'll do the listed questions first. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond. Following the candidate's 2-minute response, the other candidate may request a 1-minute rebuttal, and the rebuttal will be determined by the moderator. Following the Q&A, the questions and answers section, the candidate will get 2 minutes to offer closing statement, and there will be no opportunity for rebuttal on that closing statement. Again, I'd like to thank everyone for attending this debate here in Phillipsburg, Montana at this time. So right now I would defer to the candidates. Mr. John Lamb, Libertarian candidate, Monica Tranel, Democratic candidate. There was another candidate, Mr. Ryan Zinke, who is obviously not here, but we have a space for him just to honor his campaign, I guess. So let's begin, and I would ask each of the candidates, amongst yourselves here, who would prefer to begin with the 3-minute opening?
We do Rochambeau.
I figured it was something like that.
Rock, paper, scissors. Come on, rock, paper, scissors. Oh, dang, you win.
I don't
Scissors,
know.
cuts, paper.
I'm not very good
So,
at
Mr. Lamb,
You choose.
Well, thank you so much for everyone showing up. This is a great crowd, and it's awesome to be able to speak to so many people. The young people in the back, it's awesome to see you here because this is so important process to our country and how it processes candidates debate, or we bring questions and answers before you so you know where we stand and what we are going to bring to the people if we get elected. My wife and I have 12 children all total. We live in a little town called Norris, Montana, just west of Bozeman. We have a little farm there. We have a couple of businesses that our family operates and owns and works there. We love Montana. Montana is a beautiful state and has so much to offer for a family and people here. I want to preserve that for my grandchildren and their grandchildren, for your children or your grandchildren. I feel like a public office is just like serving our country in many ways, being a police officer, being in the military, being a candidate, or being one that's elected is just the same way. We're serving the people of the United States, trying to preserve our liberties and freedoms that we have. One thing I mentioned in another debate, and since there's so many young people, I wanted to mention it. All of us in the United States get the opportunity to serve in some way, whether small or big. One way you will get to serve eventually when you're of age is voting, and it's a big deal. We need voters. We need people to listen and learn from the voters, or learn from the candidates what we're about, so you can choose wisely who's going to lead this country and make big decisions for this country. Another one is jury duty, and I recommend anybody, no matter your age, as soon as you're eligible, if you get a jury notice in the mail, don't try to get out of it. Go serve, because you could save somebody's life, or you could convict somebody who is actually a criminal that needs to be convicted. I have fought in court cases across this country advocating for innocent people, and I've seen guilty people in courts. And I have been blessed and thankful to be in many court cases where jurors have said not guilty to innocent people. And that is a great feeling when that comes down. So thanks again for joining us here. I'm looking forward to the questions you have and answering those. Thank you.
thank you, John.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Thank you, Mayor Dan, for agreeing to moderate this. This is democracy in action. And so I'd like to just raise your hands. Maybe are you all part of a class, a high school class? Yep. And so who here is 18 or over? So you're, well. Maybe I should say who's under 18. So I'm Monica Tranel, and I'm running for this new congressional district. So Montana was the first state in the country to lose a congressional seat and then get it back. So in the 1990 census, we lost one of our 2 seats. And then in the 2020 census, we got a second seat because of the population. So the House of Representatives, which is an Article 1 branch of government, is allocated by population, the same as federal judges, unlike the Senate, which is 2 per state. So it's about 1 representative for every 500,000 people, roughly, more or less. So when our population in the 2020 census went over 1 million, we got a second congressional seat. So that became this new district, which was created last year, and it is 16 counties and 2 tribal nations. So Granite County is one of the 16 counties. It lies roughly in the middle geographically. The district is Glacier and Pend Oreille, and it comes down, it's basically between Glacier and Yellowstone National Parks is a physical outline of the district, roughly. So what you have here in Granite County, fun fact is, you will probably all know this, the oldest elementary school in the state of Montana, right? So education, thank you so much for being here. And for those of you who will turn 18 soon, or hopefully, I don't know, anybody gonna turn 18 before the election? Yeah, are you registered to vote? The election's November 8th. So yeah, so November 8th, some people will, and you can register to vote, and you should. But it was the 26th Amendment of our Constitution, which was ratified in 1971, largely as a result of the Vietnam era folks who were going to serve our country at war, but not able to vote. So a lot of the activism in the 60s led to the 26th Amendment being adopted, which reduced the voting age from 21 to 18. So your voice matters, democracy works, and it works for you. And so showing up, paying attention, engaging in the process is absolutely critical. I grew up in eastern Montana as a 6th of 10, and I played Class C basketball, and there is no accountability like there is in a small town. I had folks come up to me and say, oh, you didn't play very well in the game, Monica, and I said, I had 30 points, what are you talking about? And they'd say, well, we didn't win. So I understand what it feels like to grow up in a small town. And this is my home. So I decided to run for Congress because I feel like Montana needs our voice heard, our real Montana voice. I grew up here. I'm a lawyer. I've been practicing law here for 25 years. I do water rights. I worked on the Flint Creek hydro facility. Are you stopping me?
Yeah, go ahead.
I've gone over.
Finish your
Sorry,
thought.
too much of a civics lesson there
Okay.
at the beginning. Happy to answer the questions. Thank you for being here. This is an important process, and I'm glad you're all here. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Sorry.
You're fine.
At least you didn't beep or something.
You're fine. Okay, so I have a list of questions here that were provided to me. I think I will ask those questions, obviously. I may change a word or so, but it'll have the same meaning. So anyway, the first question I would like to direct to Monica, if I could, and that is, do you have a plan to help tackle the rising housing prices and costs in this area and the rest of your district? And perhaps you could explain what role you might think that federal government could play in that process.
Yep, thank you. So as I've been traveling this district, I've put 37,000 miles on my minivan. And the issues that I've heard across this district are housing, housing, and housing. So from Troy to Beaverhead County, it looks a little bit different in each town. In Troy, they physically can't go anywhere because it's a river valley with high mountains. In Bozeman, they can build out, but they have farmland, so is that a trade-off they want to make? These are all the kinds of calculations that have to be made locally. What the federal government can do in partnership with that is largely about incentivizing what gets built and where. So I have an affordability plan. It's on my website, monicatranel.com. But the pieces of it that matter for housing are, number one, that we need to take on corporate interests who are buying up our housing and preventing families from living there. So in Bozeman, I knocked doors on one side of the street, somebody answered. On the other side of the street, nobody answered the doors. It's all owned by Airbnb, VRBO, out-of-state corporate interests. So we need to tackle that and get a handle on that. I've spent my career here in Montana as a lawyer taking on corporate monopolies. So that's one part of it. Another part is building it here, making sure that Montanans are actually building things on the ground here. That's happening, and what the federal government can do is incentivize that, incentivize local production, local building, and making sure that there isn't a lot of red tape. So where, we want to build starter homes, affordable homes, which are not $300,000 homes, that we can actually get that done. So that's what we could do, and my affordability plan addresses that.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Lamb, go ahead.
This is a question we've had asked, I think, at every single forum and debate we've had across Montana, is the housing issue. And it is a huge issue. Bozeman, which I live near, has probably, at least what I've seen, one of the largest homeless in the state of Montana right now. Probably larger than any other state. We have several homeless camps throughout Bozeman. There's probably 8 or 9 large homeless camps. A lot of work there. We have Big Sky, West Yellowstone, and the surrounding area where people have lots of work, big paying jobs, probably some of the highest paying jobs in Montana. Land has went sky high. We can't afford to live there. I can't afford to buy a home there now if I wanted to buy a home. As a libertarian, I have a different outlook on how to fix these issues. I believe in local government fixing things and not the federal government. So I would put pressure on our local government, our governor, our local and state officials, our legislators here in Montana, to put less regulations on building homes, building small homes. We have sometimes regulations in some places where we have to build a 3,000 square foot home or a 8,000 square foot home, whatever it is, these big, especially Big Sky, even parts of Bozeman. We need to move back to smaller housing where we can do it without regulating where we can't build there. We can't have a place. Mobile home parks are needed. There are people who can't afford large houses and that type of thing. We have tore out 3 mobile home parks, moving out veterans, moving out elderly that are on fixed incomes. These places should have been more protected, or at least another solution for them to live in. So my solution is less regulations on the local level, and the local communities and our state fixing these issues more than coming down from Congress mandating and forcing us to do these things. Thank you.
Thank you for that. We're good, moving forward. So question number 2 is, obviously, we don't have tsunamis here. We have what I consider to be air tsunamis, smoke. So that's one of the drawbacks of living where we live. So there's a lot of smoke in the air this summer, and I would like the candidates to consider addressing or explaining their position on forest management. Our county is 1,780 square miles. It's 67% federal or state BLM or Forest Service. 6.5 acres out of 10. Big deal here. So there's so much smoke in the air. Can you explain your position on forest management? Climate changes, thoughts for positioning Montana for tackling challenges to the climate in our district. Go ahead, John.
I love our public lands. I love our state lands. I think we need better management of these public lands and forestries we have. We have so many regulations on the public lands. If I wanted to go buy a firewood permit, or get one to go cut firewood, sometimes it's not always accessible or easy to get into the forest. I live on the east side of the tobacco roots, large mountain range between Three Forks and Ennis, Montana. And throughout the years, it's been hard for me to go up in those mountains and get firewood. I'm restricted to just a few feet off. I think it's maybe 100 feet off of any road that's there. They may close a road, then I can't get anywhere to get firewood where there's firewood, and there's so many people go up in the tobacco roots to get this firewood. It's all cleaned up along the edges of the roads, but then 150 foot, I cannot get to a dead tree. I'm not allowed to, or I'll be fined if I got caught doing it. So reducing these, we need to properly manage our forest, let people cut the wood, cut the forest. I believe in logging responsibly. I don't like clear cutting, but we need to go in there and thin the woods, clean them up, so if there is a fire, the fire doesn't rush through these forests and just take out all this good timber, all this good trees, and ruin it for us to hike, use it, hunt, and get firewood out of. So I'm again for, I'd like to see our public lands more managed locally and not by the federal government. I would like to see the state of Montana take this, the state of Montana is managing our state lands excellently. We don't have as many fires on state lands as we do on the federal lands. There's many more fires that get started. We don't have access to it. We can't get to it properly. So I would turn these public lands, our federal lands, back into the hands of Montanans and let us handle it there. And that's how I would want to be a good steward and manage these lands properly.
Thank you.
So thank you for that question. And Granite County, interestingly, has in this whole new congressional district, it has an interesting mix of BLM and Forest Service. A lot of counties, like Mineral County, is almost all Forest Service land. And then, Beaverhead County is a lot of Forest Service, but also some BLM land as well. So kind of interesting what that means and how it would be managed. So I would approach managing our forests with an axe and a match solution. So we have to do both prescribed burning, and we have to remove some of the timber stand that has to get pulled out. And I've been looking at some options in Libby, for example, and how we can reopen some of our lumber mills and use our natural resources and put Montana's incredible natural resources to work for us. So what we know works is pulling out some of that timber and turning it into products, and we have the mill capacity to do that. So figuring out in the Sealy Swan, in northwestern Montana, in Lincoln County, and Mineral County, how can we reopen these mills and put folks back to work, pulling off some of that smaller growth timber that has been allowed to grow too much and contributing to the fires. In addition, prescribed burns is a good option there. So with respect to how that impacts climate and what we have to do, again, Montana's resources can be an enormous benefit to us. In Beaverhead County, they are putting in a solar project that's $500 million of revenue contributing to their tax base in a county that has a tax base of $1 billion. So that's real money for these small counties. And I've worked on these projects. That's what my background has been. Bringing investment to Montana, bringing wind projects here, working for ranchers who put a single turbine on their ground. My brother has our ranch in eastern Montana, so I know what that means, and that can be $10,000 a year, which is that can mean real money sometimes. So those are things that I think we need to look at. But basically, putting Montana's incredible natural resources to work for us addresses both of those problems, and that's what I've been doing my career here in Montana.
Thank you. Okay, moving right along. Question number 3. This district is new, as you folks have indicated, and the question is, what will you bring to Congress that's unique, and essentially, why do you think you can represent Montana? So you can go ahead, if you would, please.
Thank you. So I think this is an incredibly exciting moment in Montana's history. So we get to have a new voice for Montana. And what I want to bring to this, and what I will bring to this, is our voice. So I grew up in Montana. I grew up on a ranch in eastern Montana, and I bring that perspective, which is unique in Congress, to have a rural voice working for us with an ag background. Next year, the Farm Bill is coming up for Congress to consider. And I will bring an understanding of what it means for operators, when we have a consolidation of meat packing plants, that's a real impact on people, both producers and consumers. So I've seen that firsthand. I do water rights. I have ranch clients across the state. I know the impact of what this bill will mean to people. I will bring an advocacy for Montana that we have not had for a very long time. So this is my home. It's my only home. I don't have another one. I'm not going anywhere. I'm raising my kids here. I dropped my daughter off at high school today. She's a freshman. And the only thing that makes me feel better than being with her is running for Congress. So she's like, can you just like duck down, Mom? And so I understand Montana. I'm raising my kids here. And I'm deeply committed to who we are as a state, to what our future holds, to our democracy. I'm running for Congress because I love Montana and I can be an advocate for us, for this new district. I can address the issues for Montana. When we're talking about renewable energy and the resources that are now made available by the Inflation Reduction Act, that's money and resources that can be deployed in Montana in a really powerful way. I know where the projects are in Western Montana. I know how that looks. I've done these from soup to nuts on the ground here in Montana. I've represented landowners, a project, developers, all across the board, consumers. I've kept $10 million in your pocket because I was there. And I will be there for Montana. I will be our voice in Congress, and we've not had that. And I will serve Montana. I will serve you. This is about us. And I'm running because I love my home. Thank you.
Okay.
I don't like boxes, so I don't like to be labeled. I'm running as a libertarian. That's for ballot access. It's so hard to get on a ballot by being independent or being just an American or just a Montanan. I wish we could all be just, when we're running, we just knew there was an American running or a Montanan running. So I believe in my position that as being bipartisan, I can work with both sides of the aisle. What we have in Congress is a two-party system. We don't have anybody in the middle. We've had very few people elected throughout the years that have been libertarian-minded or limited government that have worked for the people. I believe that's what I can believe. This new district here is made up of so many different people, unlike Eastern Montana where it's mostly conservative. So it's hard for a Democrat to win over there or a libertarian. This side of the state, we have a diverse amount of people that I believe truly want liberty. They truly want a bipartisan person that actually represents them and doesn't represent big government, doesn't represent regulations and more laws, more and more taxes. I would be that middle guy to try to hold the balance and actually represent what this Western District actually wants. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and this one I will direct to you, then we'll go back the other way. What are your thoughts on the recent Supreme Court ruling that returned decisions concerning abortion services to the states? Go ahead.
This is another great question. I'm personally pro-life. I believe in protecting all lives. I have 12 children. I'm 100%, I believe in life. Life of everyone should have a chance to live, the mother included. I supported the overturn of Roe versus Wade because I don't believe the federal government should be involved in this decision. It should be the states. It should be the people here. So, but that said, I don't believe that the federal government should be involved either way. If the federal government decided to put a ban on abortion, I would be against it because the federal government shouldn't be involved in our life. So I believe it should be brought back to the states. Let the states decide this. On a limited government, the states should be involved in so many of these issues without the federal government's overreach or burdensome regulations and laws that keep telling us what we are and how we're going to live our lives. There is a saying that a doctor mentioned here not too long ago, and it said that when a pregnant woman comes to see me, I not only have one patient, now I have two. And that was very impactful to me. There are two lives there. We need to protect the lives of mothers, but we also need to protect all lives and cherish that as that their life is important. We need to protect the elderly, the children, the mother, the sick, the disabled. That is what we should have our goal. And thank you so much.
Thank you for that.
So the Dobbs decision that overturned Roe v. Wade is about freedom and it's about privacy. So what we have to be addressing here is our privacy. And what we know is that 10 state attorney generals have issued thousands of subpoenas to Google for location data. So who here has a phone? Google tracks your location every 2 minutes. And so the Attorney General can subpoena Google for your location information and find out if you have typed in abortion clinic, and if they can find out where you are, they can track you where you're hunting. They can track you what you're shopping for. So that's the kind of invasion of privacy that we are talking about that has been unleashed with this decision. I grew up in Eastern Montana, and I am a staunch advocate for our privacy, and I believe in that. We have a constitutional right to privacy under our Montana Constitution, and I will fight for that. I think that you should be able to make the decisions about your life, about how you choose to spend your time and treasure in this world as a woman, as a family, and we need to have the freedom to do that. That is what we have had. This is the first time in the history of our country that the Supreme Court took away rights and freedoms that were granted to us. I think that's wrong. I stand with the ability to choose how you spend your life, your time, and your treasure in this world. And I think what we need to be focusing on here is how we are protecting the ability of people to choose how they live their lives. What have we done to make contraception available and affordable? In Troy, Montana, you can't get an annual checkup there. And in order to get the birth control pill, you have to have an annual checkup. That's a part of it. That's a part of the process. So making that something that is available, affordable, and what are we doing to support our families? What are we doing to, for affordable pre-K education, to make childcare available and affordable? We know how to reduce unwanted pregnancies. We know how to do that. So let's start taking some of those steps, and let's let our families, our women, everybody in our society be free and keep their privacy. Those are enormously valuable things, and we have to do that. And this is not about returning it to the states. Lindsey Graham just introduced a bill that Steve Dean signed onto that will ban abortion nationally. Your vote in this election is going to send someone to Congress who is going to vote on whether you have the freedom to choose to keep your privacy. That's what's at stake here. I am the only candidate in this race who stands for freedom and privacy and your right to choose how you live your life. I'm the only one.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Rebuttals? Okay. General question. I didn't write these.
You can change them out.
Who's one of your favorite Montana heroes and why? Interesting segue. Go ahead.
Okay. One of my favorite Montana heroes is Mike Mansfield. I think he served us so well in Congress. But one of the things that I loved, he was asked, when you go to Congress, are you going to advocate for a certain outcome from a certain population group or certain people who sent you there? What do you view your job as being in Congress? And he said, you're electing me to think. And that is what I think we have really forgotten and left behind. Our elected officials are elected to do the work of the public, to do the hard work of showing up and saying, what are the issues here in Granite County? What is facing you? Education, jobs, labor, housing, and to represent, to truly be a representative democracy means thinking and showing up and being accountable to the people. And to me, that is what we have to do, to bring our communities together, to do the hard work of working together and bringing everybody, the silent majority of the middle, to get things done. So that's why Mike Mansfield is one of my heroes. Thank you.
I've been a big advocate for years for people who have been abused, I feel like, from injustice in this country. Whether it's been some kind of government overreach in court where they've been charged wrongfully. One individual that that lived in Montana for the last 20 years, he was from Idaho, was Randy Weaver. And I've told his story many times. A lot of people, a lot of the young folks back here may not have ever remembered the name Randy Weaver. But the federal government came into his property 30 years ago, and they killed his 13-year-old son.
Okay, thank you. Okay, among our pre-arranged questions, number 6, which is the final one, and then we'll move into some questions from the folks that are here. Montana, according to statistics, has a teacher shortage. This is one of the things that I guess is not positive, but I think should be addressed and promoted. Montana has the lowest wage for starting teachers in the nation. It doesn't have the lowest once teachers are established, but it definitely has the lowest starting wage. What is your plan in Congress, should you be elected, to help ensure Montana's next generation has good teachers and gets a quality education? Go ahead.
Me?
Yes.
Okay. So thank you. So last year, I think I heard the statistic was we lost 500 teachers across Montana. And if you go on the OPI's website, there are just incredible shortages in Missoula, Bozeman, everywhere, even in our rural counties, as you know. Not just teachers, but paras and all of the support that goes with that. So the salary is one component of that, but affordability across the spectrum is another huge, significant part of that. So people having houses that they can afford and live in so that our teachers can live in our communities. In Bozeman, in Gallatin County, in spite of the increased growth there, the population between 30 and 60 is actually decreasing. So they actually went from not only not building a 9th elementary and closing that, but actually scaling back to 8 because teachers and families are moving out of Bozeman itself. The starting salary is around, in Thompson Falls, it's $26,000, $33,000 in Seeley Lake, and there are 4 houses for sale, all of which are over $700,000. I toured the school there, and the principal said, you know, they're talking about like little pods in the back so teachers can live there. This isn't sustainable. We have to figure it out. So what can we actually do about this from the federal government's perspective? I think addressing the affordability crisis is a big part of that, but also figuring out how to incentivize our higher education costs. So we've shifted so much of going to college onto tuition. We need to figure out how to scale that back and change our land grant colleges to low tuition. They were intended to educate local folks in Montana so they could go back to their communities, teach, work, be engineers, law enforcement, all of that stuff with a college education, making college affordable and realistic for kids across Montana so they can go to school and then go back and serve their communities. So I think it's part of this underlying affordability issue. And then I think it's also, for me, talking respectfully and with dignity about our public schools and our teachers. I mean, for me, they have been the lifeblood for my family, both growing up and for my daughters. And Sue Sweeney was my daughter's principal when they were in grade school in Helena. And she was amazing at a time of my life when I really needed to lean on the public school system. So supporting our schools in every way is part of what I'll do. Thank you.
Thank you.
This has been a question about teachers being underpaid here in Montana.
That was the list of initial questions coming from myself, the moderator. And so right now, I want to open the floor to you folks, and you may address each candidate and ask a specific question. That candidate will be provided 2 minutes minimum in order to express themselves and answer the question to the best of their ability. So I would just ask that we are mic'd up here. So if you would please stand and identify yourself, and then project your voice. And I know a lot of kids out here, you have brothers and sisters, So just pretend you're talking to one of your brothers or sisters. So anyway, so the floor is open.
That's the question.
Yes.
Craig Larson. I've heard both your positions on abortion, and I understand where you guys are coming from, both of you. But I would like to know that if it was ever returned to the federal level where Roe v. Wade was reinstated, do you feel there should be a limit put on the time frame a woman should be able to have an abortion?
Who would like to address that?
All right.
Go ahead,
both,
Monica.
actually.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead
Yeah.
first. Yeah.
Thank you, Craig, for your question, and I think it's a thoughtful issue to talk about, well, what are the appropriate exceptions, nuances, rules? And I think those are fair and reasonable things to work through and to talk about. Some of the, right now, Montana allows abortion up to 22 weeks. And so what we're talking about when you talk about late-term abortions are really serious issues that are thoughtful. And these are not times when people are going in just at the last minute because, oopsie, I forgot I was pregnant for 9 months and decided to have an abortion. That's not how this is happening. These are really critical times when a woman has a family, has painted a nursery, has picked out a name, is hoping and yearning for a baby. So those kinds of eventualities are things that really belong with a family, with a man and a wife and a woman and a man and their doctors. So I'm really for the privacy of those moments and the sanctity of those moments, really, that are difficult and challenging. Should there be restrictions on late-term abortions? I think that's a reasonable conversation to have. And I'm certainly willing to entertain those kinds of conversations. But I think that the starting point really has to be allowing women and their families, whoever that is at that moment in time, their partner, to make those decisions as are best for them in those moments. The people who are having abortions in Montana right now, the statistics show, are families who can't afford to bring another baby into the world. They want a baby, and they can't afford it. And so making this affordable is a big part of that too. Thank you for the question.
Go ahead, Jim.
I know a family that lives right over here in Anaconda. Friend of our family's for many years. They are unable to have children. So they've adopted several children. I don't even know how many children they've adopted, but great family. He has a business out of Anaconda. Loves children, and adoption is an option. I believe that life starts at conception. I'm probably the most radical, extremist candidate here of the three of us that believe this. That's where I come from. I love life. I love children. I love my children. And I believe that we all should have a chance. We should put this effort into education, teaching the youth responsibility, teaching them more about, to prevent unwanted pregnancies, to prevent this. But if there is an unwanted pregnancy,
is underpinned in the 14th Amendment, which was the right of privacy that was just overturned by the Supreme Court. Mm-hmm. So let's be clear about what's at stake here when we're talking about eviscerating the right to privacy, because that is where that right resides. I agree with John on the parents' right to have that ability to determine where and how your kids are educated. But that's what's at stake right now. So on the trail throughout this district, I've talked to a lot of people, and it was interesting. I had a conversation with a woman just the other day about this. I knocked on her door, very, very conservative Republican school teacher for 35 years, just retired because of parents. She said, I absolutely and a lot of teachers I know have also retired because they were making my job miserable. I got into this because I care about my kids, I care about the families, and I'm sure that there's a case here
in Phillipsburg as it was for me growing up. Like, I came in a long line of siblings. People knew my whole family. So for this woman to say as a teacher that she had quit because parents were breathing down her neck about what are you teaching, how are you teaching it, you know, what are you doing, you know, that's concerning. What I find troubling is that this should never be an adversarial process. As a mother, and I was a single mother, I was deeply, deeply reliant on the public school system. And I was so fortunate that Sue Sweeney was my go-to person. And they were fantastic. There was never a moment in that process where I didn't feel like I wasn't heard. I could have asked her anything about my kids' education. I knew the teacher. I was able to show up. They opened their door to me all day, every day. I was totally engaged, and it was a partnership. So this is what is concerning to me, is that this is now starting to become adversarial. That's not how we're going to get things done. But there are changes that need to be made. Let's have those conversations together as a community, because we all care about how our kids are being educated. I think the public school education in America is, it's the gem of democracy. It's an important system, and 90% of our kids are educated in the public schools. So it's a backbone of our democracy. If there are things that need to be changed, let's work on those things together in partnership, in community, and not as adversaries. We're not opposed on this issue. Thank you.
Okay. Questions? Go ahead.
Yes, I'm over 18. No, I think, you know, being involved in our local politics here, when we finish our budget, it has to balance. What I see with the federal government is, I really don't think they care. I don't know what number comes after $1 trillion. But the thing that really concerns me, being retired, if I want to turn on CNN or Fox News, you can see how the House is voting, and it is Democrat, Republican, nobody in between. It's party carried, and you know, they say if the Republicans carry the House, this and this is going to change. What changes is what you talk about, cooperation. You have a bill, you go out, you talk to people to support your bill. When I call or write the senators or the congressmen, I get a form letter, or we'll get back with you. I'm sorry, you don't treat people like that. You represent me? How? You're not talking to me, so how do you know? Because people say about transparency. Right now, Congress is not transparent. I have lost faith in that. And I love this country, but people are not listening. And so we, you know, in this little town, we don't want to depend on grants and federal monies. So we look at alternatives. The infrastructure in this town, if you had a chance, we have 7.5 miles of pipe that one just about burst. Phillipsburg could have gone without water. You know, how do we fix this? Get away from this. Let's sit down together and look at it. Can the Corps of Engineers do something? What do we do? Can we do surface water? You're a water lawyer. You know, how do we handle if we decide to do wells? How do we work with the ranchers and the farmers? That has to come from somebody that we need, that we don't have any intelligence to solve. But either one of you get elected, or the third person, we will call and write. But with the VEA, we've gotten a form letter that was available. It's the same as 1980. Come on, please.
Thank you. Thank you. I might take the opportunity to sort of form this into a question, which, listening to Mr. Sundstrom here, is regarding accessibility and response. And I think we being Montanans are fortunate in the sense that we're a large geographic area, but we have a sense of community within the state. And I think often when we have a situation where we had one congressperson and now we're going to have two, how do we maintain that accessibility? And I go ahead, Monica. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Sundstrom, for your commitment to democracy and for caring and for being here today. I share your feelings. And that is why our campaign asked to have a debate in each one of the 16 counties in both of the tribal nations. And I'm grateful to John Lamb for showing up with me to these debates. And Ryan Zinke has not showed up. He is assuming that he has a Republican vote locked in, that you're not gonna vote for somebody else. That's not the Montana I grew up in. That's not the Montana I know. People vote for a person, not a party. And I'm asking you to all give me a fair look. And I'll show up. So judge us by our records. Judge us by who we are and what we've done on a personal level. I've put over 37,000 miles on my minivan. I've been in every one of the counties in both tribal nations multiple times. I've met with the county commissioners. I've met with city councils. I've met with mayors. I've done ride-alongs with law enforcement. I have showed up and I've put my actions where my mouth is, because I'm running for those reasons. We need representative democracy to mean representation. And I will show up. I got a call this morning on my work phone from somebody who was concerned about something. I answered the phone and he said, "Is this really Monica?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Oh, we never get a hold of people." And I said, "Well, look, I'm the 6th of 10 kids. My biggest fear in life is getting left out. So you can count on me to show up, because that's what matters." And that's what, I mean, I'm running, I've got 3 daughters. I have a 6-year-old and a freshman in high school at home. And I missed the first day of school. But I said, "I'm sorry, honey, that I've missed things that are important." And she said, "That's okay, Mom. I want you to win." So I'm here. I've been here. I came to the primary forum that was over in the library, and I saw Mark Sweeney at the brewery. He arm wrestled me because Ryan Zinke hasn't shown up at anything. And so, I'm showing up. So I'm just asking, judge us on our records, because what we will do in the future is going to be driven by what we've done in the past. I'll take your phone calls. I'll answer your concerns. Thank you.
Go ahead, John.
You mentioned a whole lot there, and so I'm a Ron Paul supporter, and if it was realistic and I could do it, I'd end the Fed. I would quit all this big spending, trillions and trillions of dollars in debt. I don't know how a country can survive and keep going being $22 trillion in debt. There's no way we can generate enough taxes and survive. So that's the big picture, big part. I've been an advocate for prisoners and wrongfully convicted people for years across this country. People that I take prison calls on a daily basis. Just a few moments ago, I was down here at the park with my children eating some lunch before we came here. A prisoner called me. I took the call. We're sometimes on the outside, or we're the politicians, we're your only, we're your voice. You don't have a voice. A prisoner that's locked up, or someone who's needing help from a politician that doesn't answer, you feel left out and totally out of control. You don't know what to do. When I was advocating for prisoners, we would reach out to our politicians in the different states that we were fighting, trying to get a politician of any sort, from a senator to a mayor or whatever in that area, to come out and support us, to say, "Hey, this is an injustice, it's being wrong." Very seldom any politician would answer us back. That is one of the reasons I'm running, because I want to be the voice for the people and be able to listen to what the people want. And if I go to Congress, I guarantee and promise you that is what I will do.
Thank you. We're coming up on the hour here, and so unless you folks want to squeeze one more question in, I would move. Go ahead. And after this question, we'll move to our final closing remarks.
Elena Gagliano. The people in the background, I am standing. I've listened to both of you, and I've heard the word democracy several times. Okay? And let's see if I can word this right. I want to know from each of you what you think your main role as a congressperson, as a public official, elected official, what it is, and what the purpose, the main purpose of the U.S. Constitution is. Thank you.
Go ahead, John.
I believe the Constitution is to limit the government. We have God-given rights. The Constitution doesn't give us rights. We have God-given rights that each one of us have without the government. the Constitution is to limit that government from invading our life and taking our privacy away, taking our guns away, doing all these things. So as a congressman, I feel like my job would be to work for the people of Montana and to limit the government from invading our privacy, our rights, taking those away. And I would be voting no on all these unconstitutional things that Congress would be trying to pass down to Montana by restricting us. So simply, I would be there to limit the government, to protect the rights of every individual within Montana. Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Elaine, about what is the function of the Constitution. So I think the best way to answer that question is by saying what the Constitution is. So the Constitution was adopted and ratified in 1787 after the Articles of Confederation had failed. So we tried the loose confederation of the states, and it didn't work. So what we had in place of that was the U.S. Constitution, which brings all of the states together under our constitutional republic. So the Constitution itself sets out how we are going to agree to govern ourselves. It was ratified with the first 10 amendments, that is the Bill of Rights. And then after that, of course, we have the next 17 amendments. We have 27 amendments to the Constitution. For government class, if you want to have a fun fact, go back. The 18th Amendment gives you the prohibited alcohol, and the 21st reinstated it. So those are two easy amendments you can always remember. But what the Constitution does is it says how we are going to live together. It is the rule of law that we have agreed to abide by in a civil society. It gives us the freedom. The law sets us free. When we know what the speed limit is and who's going to drive on which side of the road, we're free. We're free not to get killed every time we get in our car and go out on the highway or in town. So our Constitution is an incredible document. Democracy is an amazing form of government. It is still the best that we have agreed to. And to me, the two affirmative rights that are granted in the Constitution are in the 6th and 7th Amendments. The 6th Amendment is the right to a jury trial in criminal cases. The 7th Amendment is a right to a jury trial in civil cases. Those are the two affirmative rights. Everything else is what the government shall not do, right? And so it's Article 1 sets out what the legislature's job is, and it sets out what the enumerated rights are that Congress can do. And so that's been interpreted by the Supreme Court, but Article 1, legislature, Article 2 is the executive branch, Article 3 is the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court's increasing power is a function of the weakening of the legislature because they are not working together. So having a strong legislature means people working together over difficult problems, and my job as your representative is to get stuff done and be pragmatic and find solutions that serve this district that I will represent.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we've gotten to the period now where we're gonna ask for closing remarks by the candidates, and so if you would, Mr. Lamb, please give us your summation here of what we've experienced here today, and you have the floor for 2 minutes.
Well, thank you again for everyone showing up. It's awesome to see such a great crowd. If I want to speak about being a libertarian and kind of what it means. I mean,
You know, I might not always agree with you, but we can disagree honorably. We can have those conversations. And for me, some of the moments, some of the, most incredible moments on this campaign trail have been when really conservative Republicans have said, "You've got my vote because you showed up," or I'm with you, don't forget about me. And I think to me that is the coming together that I grew up with. When I was growing up, nobody identified as a Republican or a Democrat. I don't ever remember having those conversations. It was about, who are you playing on Friday night? Are we gonna win? When is the bazaar? Those kinds of things. But that's what our community focused on. And I think we can get back to that. And I think that's where most of us still really are.
And I think we can do that, but we need our leadership to reflect who we are as a community. I decided to run because I think we can be better than we are. I think, to have people who don't even bother to show up, who don't expect you enough to show up and ask you for your vote, that's our job. We're asking you to hire us for a job. Our job is to show up and say, here's who I am, here's what I'm about. We're not always going to agree on everything, but I will show up, I will take my licks, I'll explain why I did things, and I will be accountable to you, the people of Montana, as I have been my entire life. I know the value and the power of the middle. I'm the middle of a big family. I rode in the middle of our Olympic 8, and I got left behind on some of our family trips. So I know how easy it is to overlook the middle. But my affordability plan addresses restoring the strength and the power of the middle. I'm all in for that. I'm asking you to be all in with me. I can't get there without you. Please help me get to Congress so I can be Montana's voice for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Could I ask for a round of applause from the candidates? Is that all right?
Thank you, Dan. Thank you so much. Yeah, I really appreciate it.
Very nice. Thank you for coming.
And beers and arm wrestling at the brew pub afterwards.